Hey there, I see you made it to another episode of Scary Stories, and I'm glad you did, because we're about to embark on a spooky fishing trip. So, what sorts of things will we encounter? Join me as we relive and retell your spooky experiences. Sit back, relax, and let's get started. Story number 1: Wrong Place at the Wrong Time. 2 winters ago, I had returned from active duty in the Army for Christmas. I would be spending a couple of weeks with my family, catching up and celebrating the new year. Sharing memories and laughs with everybody was something truly unforgettable. But that's not what this story is about. Instead, I want to share a creepy encounter I had when I took my youngest brother fishing. He was 7 at the time, and I was 28. In this story, we will call him Jackson. Now, anyone who lives in Arizona knows that the winter is absolutely stunning. It would be the best time for camping. Therefore, I fast forward this story to when my brother and I arrived at my grandpa's cabin, where we would spend a couple of days relaxing. On the second afternoon of our arrival, my brother and I head into the woods, where I take him to a secret fishing spot that my family and I knew all too well. After about 10 minutes of walking into the woods, we finally settle into our spot at around 8 p.m. Now, in case you're wondering why we went so late, it's because fishing in the evening is the best time to catch. Besides, there's less noise, and you don't have to worry about people disturbing you. Anyways, there we were talking, laughing, having some sodas, and listening to the sounds of the waves crash against the shore. About 30 minutes after, nature is calling, and I told my brother I would be right back. So I head to some nearby trees and I do number 1. And when I return, my little brother points something out on the other side of the lake. Hey, bro, is it just me, or is that a person walking over there? I thought he was trying to scare me, but sure enough, we could see what appeared to be the light from a flashlight. It's bouncing around, and I can also see a tall shadow figure. We watched them for about 20 seconds before they disappeared, and we no longer see the person. Huh, that's weird. Must have just been some curious camper checking out the surroundings. I tell him, reassuring him we were safe. Besides, we were in the woods, and it's commonplace to find backpackers and campers. Another hour or so passes, and we're starting to pack up our things. This time, I'm the one who happens to look across the lake, and there, standing in between 2 trees, was a man with what appeared to be some sort of rifle. Seeing that was a shock, and I assumed he might be a hunter. However, nothing would prepare me for what was about to happen. Even though he was quite a distance away, and it was dark, the reflection of the moonlight against the lake reveals that he raises the rifle. Seeing this action, I grab my brother and I push ourselves behind the cover of some rocks. We then hear him fire as I reach for my concealed revolver. Now, in those moments, I had no clue what had caused this man to just snap. Surely, he didn't think we were some sort of wild animal. Last time I checked, no animal is going to know how to use some fishing rods or have 2 thumbs. Anyways, after 10 seconds of silence, the echoing of the round disappears. It's now I take a peek behind the cover, but the dude is gone. I scanned the entire tree line, but I didn't see anyone. So that's when I knew one thing. We had to get out of there, and that's what we do. We leave our fishing rods and other unnecessary belongings behind as we make a run for it, and the entire time back, I'm trying to call for help, but I had no cell phone service. After what seems like an eternity, we finally make it back to the cabin, but instead of staying the night, we quickly throw our things into the back seat, and we drive out of there. Later, when I called the police and I detailed the incident, they told me they had spoke with park rangers. Apparently, they found a man passed out with a bunch of bottles next to him. Along with that, a rifle similar to the one we had seen. Along with that, a rifle similar to the one we had seen. In summary, the man doesn't remember ever firing at my brother Jackson or myself because he was intoxicated. He claimed he was just out trying to blow off some steam after having an argument with his girlfriend. Safe to say, we're not going to see him again. Not that I'm complaining. Story number 2. What he left in the woods was chilling. As a huge fan of the creepy fox, I've come to expect some really awesome scary stories, and he sure delivers. It's now I've spent the weekend writing my experience, and I really hope it's to your liking, especially considering it's Halloween month. Okay, let's go back to about 2005, shall we? I was 15 years old, and it was a week in which my parents had been away on a business trip, and I had chosen to stay home by myself. It was fairly boring the first day, which is why I called up my cousin, who would later join me. He is a couple of years older than me. After 2 days of playing video games and eating nothing but junk food, we wanted to do something different. Living in a small town out in the countryside in northern Sweden meant that doing something different wasn't that difficult. Literally, my backyard extends into a forest, with the only thing separating them being a wooden fence. Therefore, wouldn't you know it, we planned on doing some late night fishing at a lake about a mile of a walk into the woodlands. So, that afternoon, we head to a local sporting store to pick up some bait and other little essentials. And later that evening, at around 6:30 p.m., we lock up the house and begin our nightly walk. Finally, at 7 p.m., we arrive to our little spot and we start fishing. We sat near the edge of the water, we caught some catfish, and things were going pretty good until an hour or so later. This is when we notice something weird happen. A vehicle is approaching with its headlights on. We quickly head behind some trees to hide since we're big chickens. And what we saw turns out to be a blue beat up minivan. But here's the thing with this minivan. Yes, there is a dirt road for people to walk on, but surely it wasn't meant for vehicles. This is why at first we thought perhaps they were police officers. However, we know very well police officers don't have minivans as standard issue vehicles. We don't think the person driving saw us because we were behind the cover of a bunch of trees, and the only light we had came from a lantern, which we turned off when we saw the headlights. That was a good call. Besides, I don't think they would have done what they did had there been any witnesses. Anyways, eventually we see someone step out. Then we watch as it appears as if they're digging a hole before placing something in there. After a few minutes, the minivan and the person drives away. Now, why we didn't go and see what they left? It's because, again, we're chicken. But we will later find the answer to the question. Fast forward a couple of days later, and there was a lot of police activity. I remember myself and my family walking outside, and there being a bunch of caution tape in some of the trees. When talking to the police, they tell us they were investigating a crime scene, and the woods were off limits. This remained a mystery until some days later. We saw on the news that an elderly couple were walking their dog in the woods, when out of nowhere, the dog started digging and sniffing in the dirt. They find a skull. Immediately, we thought about that suspicious van we saw that night, and that man. Shockingly, when they were able to find the guy who left the skull some months later using DNA evidence, he admitted he was out in the woods one late night driving in his minivan, and he buried it in the woods. Apparently, he did a bad job, and I'm glad he's still behind bars to this day. As for the skull's identity, it turned out to be from a woman who had gone missing a year prior. Story number 3. Alaskan Camping Trip. This experience happened in August of 2018. I remember it being the last week of summer break, and I wanted to do something fun. Therefore, I thought, why not go on a fishing/camping trip? However, I didn't want to go on my own, so I thought, why not invite my neighbor friend Taylor? She ended up agreeing, and the plan was set. Now, growing up in Wasilla, Alaska, summertime is the greatest time of the year, The sun is essentially up for 24 hours, and the creeks and rivers are filled to the brim with fish. Thus, with the greenery and the scenery of the woods and wilderness, we drove about an hour into the mountains, heading to a spot we had gone to when we were kids. As expected, those woods were deserted, with the only signs of civilization being the road we had just drove off of. Thus, lots of free space. So, we decided to set up camp along a creek that was also near a small waterfall. It was awesome because in the distance you would occasionally see a moose, but they would tend to leave you alone. Moving on. We would now proceed to spend the rest of that afternoon and evening fishing, drinking, and just talking about random things. And let me tell you, we caught so many different fish, but since we weren't planning on eating all of them, we let them go. As it got later into the evening, we made a little campfire and roasted some hot dogs and s'mores, just like the good old days. So far, all was going according to plan. Fast forward to around, I'd say, midnight, and both Taylor and I are inside the tent. We shared one large tent, in case you're wondering. She fell asleep at around 11 p.m., and I was still up, choosing to read a book I brought with me. I was so into the story that I was suddenly jolted from storybook land when I started to hear tree branches snapping and the sounds of leaves being stepped on. I remember thinking, wow, this is the most interactive, imagination inducing book I've ever read. I'm actually hearing noise? All jokes aside, I started to become suspicious when I hear what sounds like coughing. And yes, coughing from a person, not some wild animal. It's at this moment I nudge my friend Taylor from sleep as I grab the pistol we had brought. Taylor, wake up! Come on! Ugh, what do you want? Shh, keep your voice down. Why? What's wrong? I heard footsteps outside the tent. Are you sure? We listen for a solid minute, but the only noises we're able to hear is the occasional sounds of birds chirping. You're just hearing things. Now, can I go back to sleep, please? I felt really dumb for overreacting, thus I apologize and go back to reading. However, I still couldn't help but get the chills. Thus, nervously, I unzip the tent and I take a look outside. I don't see anyone, and it's at this moment I laugh at myself for being so overly paranoid. Fast forward some time, and I had drifted to sleep. The next thing I remember was being awoken by footsteps near our tent, then it beginning to open. What do I mean by that? The tent. That's something I forgot to mention. You see, it can be opened on both ends. Now, I was pretty groggy, so I was surprised when a man with a large machete is looking into our tent, staring at us with a creepy smile. Let me just say, this guy looked like the typical person that you would imagine seeing in the woods. Super long beard, bald, easily 300 plus pounds, with dirty, ripped clothing. It's at this moment all the adrenaline started to pump in my head, as the first question was, what did he want? It was so weird, because he just stood there. I didn't know if he was going to attack, or if he was on something, but either way, I grabbed the pistol that was next to me, and this guy immediately stops and begins to back up. I, in the most intimidating voice I could muster up, says, "What do you want? Get out of here, now. I mean it." Taylor wakes up, and she then begins to scream. This guy doesn't say a single word, but what really gives me a panic attack was when two other men step out from behind the trees. One had what looked to be a 12 gauge, and the other also had a machete. It was so creepy that we thought perhaps we were on somebody's private property. However, I don't remember seeing any signs telling us so. I wasn't too sure, but each of them sort of just stared me down before finally walking away. You can imagine, I was about ready to increase my KD ratio had these three come after myself or Taylor, but luckily, that never happened. Anyways, we were so spooked by the entire ordeal, we ended up leaving and driving into a small town where we checked into a motel. Next morning over breakfast, we were talking to some of the locals, and the conversation came up about the three men we saw in the woods. I guess there was a property not too far from where we had camped that belonged to three brothers who were very protective of their land. So it was true. We were on somebody's property. I guess we had missed the signs. Anyways, I'm really hoping they were just looking to intimidate both Taylor and I. They were not really looking to chop us up into bit-sized pieces. Thus, my story comes to an end. We haven't been back there since. Story number 4. Freaky Fishing. I have a pretty creepy story that involves an encounter I had when I went fishing a couple of months ago. For quick reference, I'm male, 20 years old, and I live in southern New Zealand. Now, this story isn't super scary per se, but I hope it's still worth a mention. So, I went to a lake that's located next to a park. That park tends to see a lot of families and kids, thus, having any issues with any possible creepers was something that was the least of my concerns. However, since I didn't get out of work until 8 p.m., by the time I arrived it was close to 9. That was fine with me because that would mean I would be left alone, right? Well, first thing when I get there is I'm interrupted by a couple of homeless guys. It did catch me by surprise, but they just wanted to know if I had some extra change. I lie and I said I had none, and they're soon on their merry way. Now, this should have been the point where I just left and came back in the morning, but I already made the drive over. Anyways, fishing was pretty slow, and though I did catch a few little ones here and there, I wasn't getting anything too special. Eventually, I start to pack up my little cooler and fishing rod about 30 minutes in, but for some reason, I'm having trouble untangling the line. This is when I happen to catch movement in my peripheral vision. After staring into the trees for a solid 10 seconds, I'm able to see two figures. Hello? Who's out there? 10 or so seconds later, two men step out, and I get the chills. They were the same homeless guys I'd seen when I got here. I already told you to. I don't have any change on me. I don't think they were just after change, because in their hands, I was able to see knives. I got the chills as I grabbed my fishing pole for some form of protection. The two, however, continued to walk over to me, almost as if they were possessed. As they inched closer and closer, I knew fighting against two guys with blades would most likely lead to my demise. Therefore, I chose the better option of running. Now, you would think this would be the end of my ordeal, and it should have been, if it weren't for the fact that the two began to chase me. This chase lasts for about 30 seconds, until I pretty much fly into my car. Last thing I remember was one of them trying to open my passenger door, but I pressed the pedal so quickly he lost his grip and fell on the concrete. Serves him right. Obviously, I can't know for sure what those two wanted with me, but I haven't been back to that lake since. Update. A couple of homeless guys were arrested the other day, and they were charged with armed robbery. Want to know who those two were? Yup, the same ones I encountered that very same evening. Story number 5. Stranded in the Ocean. Let me start off by prefacing with this. My story doesn't involve an encounter with a creepy person that's trying to come after me, but it does involve the vast ocean and its many dangers. Perhaps what makes this story so scary is the fact I may have never seen anyone ever again. Let's go back a few summers ago. I was vacationing in Mexico. I'd been staying at this really nice resort right by the beach. I'd been there for about 2 days, and I was living it up, spending time in the swimming pools, relaxing in the spas, and just taking advantage of the peaceful atmosphere. On the 3rd day, I went to the front lobby where I looked at some of the neat things the hotel provided. Apart from tours and shows, there was the option to rent a little boat and go fishing. The boat wasn't anything too special. There was a little roof on top for cover and enough space for about 3 people. Anyways, this sounded like a lot of fun, seeing as I grew up going fishing with my dad. Therefore, I went ahead and rented the boat. After, I returned to my room to change, then grabbed myself a fishing rod from the selection they had, and soon enough, I was on my way. That's where I would spend the majority of the afternoon, fishing by the shore, and the nice thing was, I caught some fish here and there. However, one thing I know about fishing in the ocean is you want to head a little bit farther in, because that's where you're going to catch most of your fish. Thus, I propel my little boat further into the ocean until I find a spot I was satisfied with. I was there for a couple of hours, and by 7 p.m. the sun was just setting. I knew now it was finally time to head back and return the boat. No problem. I reached for the engine. I tried to turn it on, but there was an issue. The engine wouldn't start. Well, no worries. Let me just try again. Nothing. A third time, no sign of engine parts moving. Okay, maybe if I just wait a couple of minutes, I would try again. 5 minutes pass. It won't start. 20 minutes pass. Still, nothing. I was really starting to get scared because I was going farther and farther into the ocean, and with it becoming dark, I was essentially on my own. Now, if there was one good thing going for me, it's that the hotel would notice I hadn't returned. Therefore, I would have to wait for rescue. I must have waited there for about 3 hours, because finally I was able to see a search party and some powerful lights coming from a couple of boats. Needless to say, after being out in the ocean for almost 10 hours, I was finally rescued. I was cold, tired, scared, but ultimately thankful. As for the boat and the engine's malfunction, the hotel apologized, and they even offered me a free week. I took the offer, but I chose to spend my time on land. Since then, I have been fishing, but I avoid wide open water such as the ocean. And now let's move on to our final story, The Masked Men. This took place in Mexico a couple of years ago. As much as I've tried forgetting it, I can't help but recall the absolute panic I felt. So, I'd been visiting my family, who was living in a small town called Tecoman. For a quick reference, I was born and raised in that town. Anyways, anyone who might be familiar with that part of Mexico knows it can be pretty dangerous, especially in the evening. So much so, it's recommended that citizens avoid being out so late. This was a warning I would learn firsthand. One late afternoon, I had decided to head to this lake that was a bit into the countryside, where I would do some afternoon fishing. It was about 20 minutes from town, but I remember how beautiful it was growing up, not only for the peace and quiet, but the scenery. Eventually, when I arrived, I saw another family who had been fishing, and they say hello and invite me over. I took the offer, and I joined them with catching fish and even sharing food. About 30 minutes with these people, we watch as this blue pickup approaches from down the dirt road. When the vehicle stops, two masked men that were armed demand we hand over any and all valuables we were carrying. It was really scary, but seeing as we had no other options, we do what they say. Bear in mind, while this is taking place, I'm thinking this was the end of me. Thankfully, it wasn't, but sadly, they took my wallet, my phone, and a watch in the process. That was pretty much it. They soon drove away, and I returned back to my aunt and uncle's house with a scary story to retell. To this day, I never got my old phone back, but what worries me the most is if they were able to unlock it and see all my information. Seeing as no creeps had visited my home or have tried calling my house, it's a good sign they were unsuccessful. So hopefully, they just sold it for money or something else. Hey, what did you catch? Wow, take a look at that whopper. Nicely done. I just hope you didn't catch anyone that would send you running. But tell me, what were your thoughts on today's episode? Was it a catch? If so, leave a comment down below and tell me what you thought. Also, if this is the first time you've joined me on this episode of Scary Stories, then make sure to subscribe and turn on those notifications. One thing you're going to love is I feature experiences you're not going to find on any other channel. That's why I rely on all of you who send in stories. So make sure, if you're sending one in, you haven't sent it to another narrator. We don't want you having to skip videos now, do we? No, we don't. But hey, those of you who have been here since forever, you know that this month is premiere month. So far, I've featured some pretty exciting and spooky videos. We've done paranormal stories, Halloween, this video, and I still have many more surprises on the way. But you're going to have to stick around to find out what those videos will be. Anyways, now's the time where I go back and I read some of the comments you left. Yes, friends, it's time, once again, for Comments with Creepy. First comment we have comes from MLayQS. Let's see. For Halloween, I'll be dressed up as a girl, sitting in bed, eating her favorite store-bought candy, and listening to creepy stories. I hope one of your vids is among them. Thank you, Creepy Fox. Well, you're very welcome. I just hope you make sure and save some candy for me. And as for the week of Halloween, I'll make sure to have some videos out. Or at least, probably one. Like I said, I'm going on vacation, so I still have some videos scheduled, and I should have one either right before Halloween or maybe on Halloween. We'll see. Here's Keisha. Hey, Creepy Fox. Haven't heard your stories in a while. I just caught up. Well, thank you for catching up, Keisha. And that goes to anybody else. If you missed another episode of my stories, then make sure and go back and check it out. For some reason, a lot of you missed the Unexplained Stories video last week. I don't know if it just didn't get to your subscription boxes or you were all busy or what happened, but yeah, for some reason, a lot of you missed it, so definitely go back and catch up in case you didn't see it. Here we have Melissa. I love your content as always, and love Halloween too. Perfect time of the year for these uploads. Yes! Oh, I totally agree with you there, Melissa. This time of the year is absolutely perfect. The temperatures cool down. I get to record these stories with it not being so warm. I get to have myself some hot chocolate. I get some candy at the end of the month. All in all, good times. But we'll see. I'll be flying in the air that day. I mentioned it in the last video, but I'll be flying to Mexico on Halloween. So hopefully they'll trick or treat on the plane and they'll give us some candy. I think that would be pretty cool. Here we have, is it Bew Mason? I hope so. Let me know if I'm wrong. I love listening to your creepy stories and how you put so much time and effort for all of us to hear something new. I listen to your stories while I do my college math homework, and it puts my mind at ease and focused. Keep up the great work, as you always do. Well, thank you very much. I plan to create a lot more videos coming up this fall, and hopefully you'll be excited for that. So if you've got any finals or midterms to study for, then just know I'm going to have you provided with some pretty cool, creepy stories. So definitely look forward to those. Here's Lydia. I don't think I'm actually going to put the effort of creating a costume this year, but if I were to, I think I'd dress up as a scarecrow and dress my parrot as a crow. Love your videos. Have a great vacation. Honestly, that's probably one of the cutest ideas for a costume. And thank you, I'm really excited for the vacation. Right now I'm recording this on October 9th. You'll be getting this on October, I believe, the 11th or so. But yeah, once the video goes up, it'll be about 20 or so days, so about 3 weeks till the vacation. So I'm really excited. Here we have Gavin. Love the Halloween stories. You should put out a part 2. Well, I'll definitely think about that. If you guys have any Halloween stories to submit, then make sure to do so. I only have like a couple left, so I'm not just gonna make like a 5 to 10 minute Halloween episode. I want to make sure it's at least, I don't know, from 40 to 50 minutes. So if you guys want a part 2, then if you have a Halloween story, send it in because that's the only way there's going to be a part 2. Here we have JC. Halloween stories. Can't wait. Going to make a mug of hot chocolate and listen to the stories in bed. Oh, you're making me so jealous. It's so warm here that I can't even make hot chocolate. I mean, I can, but I have to wait until it's like later in the evening. But make sure to save me some hot chocolate, friend. Here we have Alex. Dude, I love you. I love you too, brother. I listen to you while I fall asleep. Well, thank you, Alex. Thanks for taking the time to not only comment, listen, but letting me be a part of your life. I appreciate that. Here we have Haunted Girl. Hiya, creepy little foxy. I've been waiting for Halloween tales since November 1st of 2018. LOL. I love Halloween, and I love your channel, my friend. Happy Halloween, everyone! Happy Halloween to you as well. And I know, it's been a whole year. I'm definitely gonna try to see if I can do a part two, so I don't just leave you with one episode of Halloween stories. Otherwise, we're gonna have to wait a whole year for Halloween stories, and even me personally, I don't think I can wait that long. Here we have, is it El Sandra? Happy Halloween from Oregon. Happy Halloween from Southern California. Okay, so that's just a bit of what you all had to say. Thank you. Now, let's go on to question time. And today's question is this: are you a sushi person? I'm only saying because, well, we did fishing stories today. Anyways, if so, which is your favorite? Personally, for me, it's gotta be salmon. Yummy. With that, this has been the Creepy Fox, and you've joined me on Scary Stories. See you all next time. Take care, and have an amazing day.